Hello and welcome to the Rockies Now podcast. It is episode 45 of the Rockies Now podcast. We are a Colorado Rockies podcast. Whether you're a Rockies fan or just a baseball person, you can follow us at Rockies Now on all of your favorite social media platforms: Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Thanks for joining with us today. I'm your host Steven. Co-host Tom is here with me. There we go. Tom, how did your Christmas go? And we're almost ready for the new year.
It was good, relaxing. I've had this entire week off from work, so it's been quite good to catch up on housework as well as some relaxation time. But yeah, all in all good. And yeah, the new obviously things are picking up a little bit with not just Otani and Yamamoto, but now Chris Sale gets traded just late last night. But yeah, new year, so hopefully more action and looking forward to a new season and hopefully good things for me and everyone in general for 2024.
Yeah, I was just telling Tom for our listeners that are in. I was just telling Tom before we started, but overall, a great Christmas for me. Kind of ill over the weekend, but feeling much better. So for those that know me really well, they can follow me on social media. I got a Russell Wilson jersey for Christmas, and I asked for it because there's a store here in Colorado called Shields. It's a great store. It's an outdoor sports store, and anyway, they were selling them on sale for like $40 or something like that. And I noticed it. This was like back when the Broncos were like in that 5 game winning streak, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cheap. He's playing pretty well. I'll get a Russell Wilson jersey because I've been a Broncos fan for a little bit less than as a Rockies fan because shortly after I became a Rockies fan, I started watching Denver sports more, and I remember Jay Cutler when he was here with the Broncos, and but really started watching the Broncos when Peyton Manning was here. But so yeah, I asked for a Broncos jersey, a Russell Wilson jersey, just for fun, and because I wanted one. Well, I got my wish. I got a Broncos jersey. But the thing is, it was the day after the Broncos lost to the Patriots, arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. So, I opened it. I was like, hey, this is awesome. But, it's just like, what if he's not on the team? And literally within the next day or two, the Broncos announced that they're going to be benching him for the rest of the year. And then all of a sudden, hell broke loose all over the media, Twitter, like Instagram, you name it. And I mean, it's still going crazy right now. But so yeah, I got that for Christmas. So, anyways, other than that, I had a pretty good solid Christmas.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, really, right now we're kind of getting to that time where baseball is only like 50 some days away. I think I saw something like the other day. Spring training is like somewhere around 53, 54, 55 days away.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I mean, pitchers and catchers will be reporting uh, very very soon. I mean, it'll be like tomorrow, and we'll already have baseball, which is really really exciting. But yeah, like you said, a lot of moves are going on, especially over the last 24 hours with some trades. And I guess Tom, you can head into that before we start going into our next segment about our 2024 resolutions. So first one, well, let's talk about the big one today, which is Chris Sale, former White Sox starting pitcher,
Mhm.
former Red Sox starting pitcher as well. He's going to the Braves for Vaughn Grissom, top prospect who came up through the Atlanta Braves organization. So, Tom, why don't you tell our listeners about that trade?
Well, I mean, for those of you, obviously, many our dedicated listeners and followers definitely know that I am from Chicago. I grew up I've been a White Sox fan since I was 5, Rockies fan since I was around a teenager, around 12, 13 years old. In baseball, Chris Sale is my favorite pitcher overall. He It was a very sad day when in December, the Monday of the winter meetings, when he got traded to the Boston Red Sox. But of course, the White Sox time needed to rebuild. And after Chris and the Red Sox got one of the things they needed out of that deal, he had 2 phenomenal seasons, including 300 strikeout season in 2018, and of course he helped them was a big factor in helping them win the World Series in 2018. He had one of my favorite moments of that season, or even that postseason, was him striking out Manny Machado, aka Johnny Hustle, on almost a picture perfect slider, and they celebrated yet another Dodgers loss in the World Series on their home field. And that was just a wonderful thing for me to see him win the World Series, and B, see the Dodgers lose the World Series. So that was and when they signed him to that extension just before the 19th season, I thought he was going to be a Red Sox for life. I thought he would continue on. but over the past several seasons, he has become injury prone.
Mhm.
Because of course he missed 2020 because he decided to have the Tommy John surgery and skip that whole COVID shortened season. And of course, in the since 21, 22, and 23, he has not exactly been on the field. He has pitched 42 and 2/3, 5 and 2/3, and then this past season he pitched 102 and 2/3. So showed a bit of more durability, but the problem is he had in 20 starts he had an ERA just slightly over 4.3. And the big thing is with his contract, this 2024 is his last year, and then there's a vesting option for 2025. So, I mean, Vaughn Grissom was a prospect that a lot of teams I know trading with the Braves wanted. I know the White Sox wanted to try and, I guess you can say, snake him in the Aaron Bummer trade. That's what I heard a story about there. But I think for all three parties involved, this is kind of a win for the Braves. You already have Spencer Strider, Max Fried, and Charlie Morton as your top three. You insert Sale as the second or third starter, pending how you want to play lefty righty and everything like that. Yeah, for him, he doesn't have to be the guy here. I see this is a definite situation where he waived his no trade clause. He doesn't have to be the ace. He can just
Mhm.
try and find himself. And if he's a second or third starter and he pitches, let's say, somewhat close to what he was, not completely what he was before he started getting injured, he could just be that third starter, maybe pitch to the production of a number two starter. The Braves have quite a formidable rotation, and
Mm. Mhm.
it would be crazy. And again, I know I mean, with the Dodgers adding Otani and Yamamoto, the Braves I know are trying to stay as, they want to be, quote unquote, top dog, quote unquote, here because they were the number one seed in the playoffs. But they don't want a repeat of last year. They don't want to lose to the Phillies again in the divisional round. So this is a win for Chris Sale. He goes to a situation where he has a chance to win another ring. The Braves get a starter who they have under control, a potential for next year if they don't want to if they want to retain him.
Mhm.
And for the Red Sox, who are kind of trying to find their identity or trying to, I mean, again, they're in a tough division. The Blue Jays, Rays, and Orioles are going to be good. The Yankees just added Soto. We don't know how that's going to work out for them. So, in a sense, people have them ranked number five in the division. So, they're trying to figure things out again, and they have a new head of baseball operations. So we'll see. It's a good trade overall, in my opinion, for all sides involved. It was crazy. I was shocked. I did not see that coming, but when I came back to earth, it makes sense for all of them. So, you know, best of luck to everybody involved, I hope.
Yeah,
Ex-
like yeah,
except except I'm not wishing best of luck in the sense to, well, never mind. I won't say that part of it.
say it.
Well, I kind of I don't I'm not trying to root against the Braves here, but it's
Yeah.
just they're trying to be. I hate it when teams in sports when there's super teams. I just don't.
Yeah, like, yeah.
I just I
Last week
don't
we
want
talked about the Dodgers, yeah.
I don't want MLB to become the NBA with these super teams. I don't want to
100%
see.
agree, yeah.
I just don't want to see it. I don't.
Yeah.
I just to me,
It's
I just
frustrating, yeah.
it's very frustrating. But that's the world we live in, and it doesn't mean. And again, I gotta say,
Mhm.
this doesn't guarantee the Dodgers or the Braves a World Series. This won't guarantee them. It's people.
Yeah.
I know there's plenty of people on Twitter and X saying, "Oh, it's a guarantee." Not necessarily
Mm.
true. So
Yeah.
again, I
Money can't buy you championships, and like, we've seen that. Like, look at the Braves the past 2 years, and listen, I have some Braves friends, they love the Braves, big fan of the Braves, but look where it's gotten you over the past 2 years. Nowhere. Like, you've gotten bounced in the first round.
mhm,
Like, and they've arguably had the best rosters in baseball. And hey, is this a good trade? We'll see. I mean, Chris Sale has a lot to prove. Like, a
yes, he
lot to
does.
prove. I mean, because the
Mhm,
Braves just gave up a I think a very somewhat of a future guy, like a huge future, like Vaughn Grissom again, top
mhm,
prospect guy from the Braves organization, and you're getting rid of a pretty solid. And not to mention the Red Sox, like right after they got him officially today, they said, "Yeah, you're our starting second baseman,"
mhm,
and says a lot, especially if you're the Boston Red Sox, and again, Chris Sale with his numbers and his accolades and his awards and everything that
mhm,
he's done, winning a World Series in 2018, we'll wait and see. I mean,
mhm,
I'm not going to give the Braves the NL East because you still have the Phillies. They're the daddy of that division. I
Right.
still consider the Phillies the favorites. You might have, of course, in the future, we'll see. But I mean, you do have the Braves have all those young players locked up, like Riley, Acuna, Albies, I think is locked up as well. So yeah, I mean, you have a pretty solid rotation. But again, you know, however, you're starting to see a rotation that's starting to age a little bit. Charlie Morton
Mhm.
is getting up there. Same thing
Yes.
with Chris Sale. I mean, about a half of that rotation is kind of getting old. And so,
Mhm.
and I know that, a lot of Braves fans will say, well, we have these guys in AAA, AA that are already,
Sure.
getting ready to get called up. Hey, that's cool. But, you know, you're giving a risk to Chris Sale here because he I'm not looking at the stats here, but I want to say he's given like he's only had I want to say over the past 3 years he's pitched less than 100 innings in a season, and so it's just you don't know if it's going to work out or not. But we'll see. Again, this is I think we'll have to wait and see. But again, I think this is a good trade for Boston. They're getting a very good player.
Mhm. Mhm.
With the Braves, you're getting a risky pitcher. I mean, if he's healthy, he can be really solid. But yet, even Chris Sale, when he was somewhat healthy last year before he
Mhm.
got injured again, he had some rough moments, and so we'll see. But again, we've seen before in sports where players, not only baseball but in football, basketball, you've seen players move from one location to another and they're completely different. And
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with Chris Sale. Maybe Boston messed him up mentally, physically, you name it. But maybe Atlanta saw something and it's like, hey, you know what? Let's get Chris Sale. Um, so I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious of what's going on there.
Well, like to your point about you can't buy a championship, the Mets couldn't buy the 2023
Mhm,
championship. But no, I mean, like I texted this to you earlier. They have one of the best pitching coaches in baseball in Rick Kranitz, and they again reclamation project. And it's like you said, change of scenery can help a guy.
mhm, 100%. And what was the other move? It was yesterday. I forget.
Another Lucas Giolito went to the Red Sox, and so
Another White
that
Sox pitcher. Yeah.
yeah, the numbers surprised me. 19 well, there's an option year. I think it's an option year for year 2, but 19 million for the 1-year deal. I thought he'd get probably somewhere maybe 12 with 15. I didn't think he'd get 19, but again, the Red Sox could use a guy like him, so we'll see how that goes. It could work out well for them and him because I know he wants to parlay into one solid deal and while he enters the prime of his career. But yeah, it's a good signing. So
Mhm.
and like I said, I thought he and Sale were going to be paired together, two former White Sox aces paired together, but not anymore.
Yeah, and I want to briefly talk about former Rockies pitcher who pitched for the Rockies this past year. Chris Flexen is going to the
Mhm,
Chicago White Sox. So we're
mhm,
talking a little bit about
mhm.
some of the White Sox transactions here. Um, but yeah, Chris Flexen, I texted you yesterday. I kind of wanted him back. I know he had a rough year, and I know a lot of people are like, yeah, he's finally off the team or he's gone. But I mean, Chris Flexen, you look at a couple years ago how good he was in Seattle. I
Mhm,
remember when the Rockies went to Seattle, he was throwing like really well. Like he only gave up, I want to say like 2 hits in one game against us or something like that.
mhm,
He was solid. He has, coming out. I mean, he had a short stint in Korea for the 2020 season, and then he kind of came back with the Mariners in 2021. And he was solid with them, but then he was let go in I want to say, yeah, mid 2023 last year. And then went to the
yeah,
Rockies, 29 total games, posting a 6.86 ERA, over 102 and a thirds innings with 74 strikeouts. But I mean, there was a couple games where Flexen was pretty solid for the Rockies, and yeah, there was like some performance. It was just not. I remember the first few starts, it was just bad, and I was like, this is bad for the Rockies. But I mean, it wasn't like we were competing for a playoff spot, but Flexen at the end of the season, he had a few solid starts. I remember the one in Chicago against the Cubs was solid. He had a few other solid ones as well. And with it was really for depth. Really, I wanted him to come back, but I'm fine with
mhm,
him going to Chicago. I mean, I want to see the Rockies give, closer looks to Noah Davis and Peter Lambert. And I'm not sure about Ryan Rollison because we'll see if he's healthy or not. But I think he had another surgery at the end of this past year, so we're probably not going to see Rollison, be competing for a rotation spot, unfortunately. But you have other guys in AAA
mhm,
that are coming up. Even in Double A, Joe Rock is a
Mhm.
name that I like people to keep your eyes out, because actually in a couple days we'll be posting a post on our story, on our Instagram post, Twitter, about some prospects that Rockies fans should be keeping an eye out for in 2024. Joe Rock is one of them, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Rock kind of comes in, midway through the season, if not later in the season, if the Rockies have injuries. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but there's some spots for some of these pitchers can, compete for the last, fifth rotation spot, because really you have at least the top three locked down with, Quantrill, Freeland, and Gomber. But I would like to say Lambert might have the number four spot locked up, because he was pretty over. There was a couple times where Lambert was really good last year, especially
Mhm.
in Miami. I remember watching that game; it was crazy. It was great to see. And with Lambert now finally healthy, knock on wood, uh, I would like to see him as a number four, because it just, he's not going to be the number one guy that I think the Rockies were hoping he was a few years ago. But I think Lambert could be a guy that could be at the back end of your rotation if healthy. And, yeah, he's kind of getting up there in age, but I think Lambert could be definitely a good guy at the back of the rotation. And Noah Davis, the Rockies gave him some looks last year, kind of bounced around a little bit, but he had a good solid start there too, especially in Seattle in his first start. I remember that one. So yeah, there's some names here the Rockies can toss around here, and if they want to go out in free agency, they can do that. And so, um, and I think we mentioned this last week. The Rockies necessarily don't have to do much, if anything, for the rest of the offseason, other than get a backup catcher and one more starting pitcher for depth,
Mhm.
because the lineup is already ready to go. And
Mhm.
other than maybe a bench player or two, I know last week you talked about getting a left-handed bat potentially to kind
Mhm.
of help out that lineup, because there's not a lot of left-handed batters in the Rockies lineup except McMahon, Blackman, Nolan Jones, but
Mhm.
there's definitely some guys that are still out there that I'd like to see the Rockies get. But really, the Rockies can kind of just, I'm not saying not do much of anything, but the Rockies, they really don't have to do much of anything at the moment right now, because a lot of it has to do with seeing what their young guys have, and the prospects that are coming up for next year.
Yeah, the truth is, real quick thing on Chris flexing. Yeah, he in Seattle, it was amazing. In 2021 and 31 starts, he had 3.61 ERA and just under 180 innings. And yeah, he had issues. And looking at his Fangraphs page, between 2021, 22, and 23, his walk rate didn't change much. Well, his strikeout rate didn't change much. Neither did but his home run rate was a problem, because here's something interesting. His ground ball rate between 2022 and 2023 went up from about 34% to around 39%. And as a result of not keeping the ball down, his home run rate nearly more than doubled from 8.5% to 19.4%.
Mm,
So, and again, I know that anybody's listening to my voice when I read those Coors Field effect, this. Well, that's one of the things I'll talk about it later. The one thing is that Rockies pitchers need, when you're pitching for the Rockies, you got to focus on keeping the ball down. Got to keep it down.
yeah.
Again, easier said than done, but that's one of the focus you have to be. And yeah, to your point about the roster, the position players are basically set. What you see now when you look at MLB, their depth chart, or their depth chart MLB.com, that's what you're going to see in the lineup. Knock on wood here, barring no injuries there, barring good health and no injuries, that's what you're going to see. And like I've said before, this is about evaluating your core, who's gonna be part of the team that you're gonna build around, which it is starting to take shape, as you and I both talked about, with Tovar, McMahon, now Nolan Jones, Bretton Doyle. Hopefully, Chris Bryant can be that veteran piece, and Charlie Blackman. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what he wants to do at his age. But again, like I said, the names I just mentioned, they're trying to, and hopefully Brendan Rodgers or Amador, when he's ready. We'll have to wait and see. But they're trying to piece it together. The only thing that they have and will do going forward, because I know people are saying make moves, this, that. Well, it's not time to make the big move just yet.
Hmm.
Bill Schmidt, I know, if knowing them, they're prepared. They've probably got a big white. He could have a big whiteboard in his office with the free agents he wants to target next offseason. That if everything goes as planned, you'll see some big moves next year. But yeah, they may add a couple more arms or two. And like you said, ideally, I would like a left-handed hitting veteran catcher. but that's easier said than done to find a lot. I think the two hitting catchers that I was talking about, I think are off the board, except one I think could be a good depth piece. I think Zach Collins is still available. He could, former White Sox prospect, he could be a good AAA depth piece. But again, most of the at bats in AAA are going to go to Drew Romo, who is a switch hitter. So that's something I'm looking forward to
Mm.
in the future, watching his development. But yeah, there's going to be onesie twosie here moves just to kind of shape the minor league rosters going forward.
Yeah, and I want to talk quickly about the Rockies payroll because I think there was an article a year or two ago about the Rockies payroll increasing, especially with the Arenado contract now kind of like fizzling out. Because I
Mhm,
think the Rockies, I want to say like this might be this upcoming year will be the last year they pay for Arenado's contract. If not, I think it's the year after that. Um, but starting, I think next year, the Rockies said that they're going to start increasing payroll for the
mhm,
future
mhm,
because a lot of it had to do with not only the Arenado contract, but a lot of it had to do with the Ian Desmond contract because the Rockies signed him through 2022, I believe,
mhm.
and he got signed in 2015, 5 years. No, 20,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, 2022, I think, right?
I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking it up to see if actually, I think his money for this season is off the books. The only
Yeah,
retained salaries, according to Spotrac, the only retained salary, well, they have the Vinny Castilla deferred money,
yeah.
but the only retained salary they still have on the books is Nolan.
Yeah, and is this year is 2024 going to be the last year? Or is it 2025?
I think let me check 5. I think it's either 4.
Yeah.
Let me check. Hold on, bear with me. Let me switch over to 2025 and see if it's on
Hmm.
there.
Yeah, I know
Just
it's either this year or next year.
let me see. All right, 2025. He's on 2025. I don't think it's 2026, but just be on the safe side, I'm going to update for 2026. Just give me one fast
Hmm.
moment. 2020.
Yeah.
It's actually still on for 2026 as well.
Okay. Yeah, but I think each year gets smaller and smaller, correct?
The I think all of them, the adjusted salary for all those years was 5 million, and the luxury tax adjusted pay was 8.5 million.
Okay. But yeah, what I had to say is that
But yeah,
with
I think
The Rockies are, well, go ahead.
no, I'm just sorry, real quick. I'm checking. Yeah,
No.
2026 is the last year. Correct. I just
Okay.
confirmed.
Yeah, because I want to say, like, again, I think the article should still be out there. Just like type in Rockies payroll or
Mhm,
whatever. But it said that the Rockies right around 2023, 2024, they're going to be increasing payroll,
mhm,
uh, for the future because they would like to build around this team. But it's kind of crazy to think about too, because you look at the top 30 prospects for the Rockies, and you're like, how are they going to get like free agents if all these guys are on the roster? You have a bunch of outfielders, and I mean the Rockies they could make some trades. There's possibilities that the Rockies could trade Benny Montgomery, Sterling Thompson for
mhm,
pitching. That could be a possibility. They could trade. Who knows? I don't think they would trade a pitching prospect because the Rockies really want pitching, and I don't think they
mhm,
would do that. So if the Rockies would make a trade, it would probably be for like an outfielder or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it would be not because if there's a free agent on the market that's like, oh man, we got to get this guy. I'm not
mhm.
talking about Shohei because he's not going to be a free agent, but if there's a guy that's on the market in the next year or two, I mean, if Bill Schmidt really likes, hey, we saw this guy a few years ago in the draft, or like he was coming up through their system. We really want him, kind of like Nolan Jones, because the Rockies apparently, when Nolan Jones was getting drafted, a few years back in the Guardians organization, the Rockies hadn't had their eye on Nolan Jones, and when they were kind of going through the offseason last year, the Rockies, looked at Nolan and they were like, hey, it's time we trade for him. And they had a prospect that was already available in Juan Brito. And yeah, Brito was a solid prospect who
Mhm,
I think is going to be a great player for the Guardians. I think a lot of Guardians fans really like him. But the Rockies, they were able to sacrifice that for Nolan Jones, who has a chance to be a face of the
mhm,
franchise type player for the Rockies if he's healthy and if he can put up, similar numbers, if not better numbers than this past year. And it was his rookie year. I mean, Nolan Jones had one of the best rookie seasons in Rockies history by any player. Same thing
mhm,
with Tovar. Tovar had an underrated rookie season. And I know that you look at some of the numbers, his chase rates are pretty high. But again, he's a rookie. I mean, Story had, kind of like Tovar, had an unbelievable rate of swinging outside the zone, like sliders, you name it. I mean, Story struck out a lot in his first couple of years, but look at what he did a few years later. I mean, he was an all-star shortstop. It's kind of hard to believe he still hasn't won a Gold Glove yet, but he was able to help that Rockies team in 2017, 2018 to get to the postseason. So Tovar's there. So yeah, I mean, the Rockies, they have a bunch of players I feel like are already kind of getting up there, kind of what's the word? Kind of like already they already somewhat have their spot, but yet they're not here. Um, and the Rockies, they the 24 payroll. Let me bring up here in the what Tom brought for me. So the 2024 payroll for the Rockies is 126 million.
Mhm.
185,000. So 126 million. That's right. I think it ranks 15th in baseball. So
Then
right
and
at the
just
middle of the pack. Yeah.
and just say that excludes Nolan Arenado's retained salary.
You right. Yeah. And so yeah, again, 15th right in the middle of the pack there.
Mm.
So it's and to be honest with you, with the Rockies, with the the record that they have, it kind of would you would kind of expect them to be kind of lower, like near the athletics level. But no, the Rockies are kind of in the middle, and some of it is with the Chris Bryant contract, and that's a topic for another day. And of course, we've kind of talked about it quite a bit on this podcast before, but it just, the Rockies, they have their players, and I think they have their prospects. And just the other day, MLB Pipeline put up on Twitter or X that the Rockies are basically officially focused on young players moving forward. They're not going to go out huge in free agency and get these players. That I think a lot of Rockies fans would like. The Shohei Ohtani's, but um, KB's 28 million salary is let's see here, 21.4% of the payroll. So, you know, with that, I think the Rockies they're going to play it safe moving forward, heading into the future, because you just don't want to.
Mhm.
Because I mean, the Rockies, I think they're kind of I like I mentioned this like last week when we were talking about you know Neagle and Hampton, right? When the Rockies got them in the early 2000s, those guys were top of the market for pitching, and the Rockies were like, hey, let's get the top of the market, and look how that went. The Rockies, they were still paying for their contracts going into 2010s, for those who are wondering about that. So the Rockies, they don't want to do that again. And I think with Chris Bryant, we're there's some concern there. There's it's kind of funny too, because we were just talking at the beginning of the show about Russell Wilson. There's like some similarities with Russell Wilson and Chris Bryant, because the contract length and extension, and well, however, Chris Bryant was never extended, but I just find it very interesting. But yeah, like the Rockies, plain and simple, they just gotta take it safely as they move forward here, because you don't want to all of a sudden make a huge uh, you know contract to a player. And like Bill Schmidt said during the winter meetings, if you do that, you're basically overpaying for a player and that you kind of don't need, or that you don't know if it's going to work out that well. So I'm curious to see what the Rockies are going to do in the next year or two in terms of free agency. I imagine that they might be a little bit active. However, I think Bill Schmidt and the Rockies front office are focused on a lot of the young players, and so that's something to look forward to.
It is something to look forward to. It's something to envision. I'm just kind of real quick I'm just for my own curiosity. Hold on. I'm trying to update the pending free agents for 2025.
Hmm.
There are quite a few names out there. I mean, Garrett Cole has an opt out. Chris Sale has that vesting option. I told again, Zach Wheeler will be 34. Altuve is a free agent, and obviously these are some of these guys. Not all these guys are kind of some of these guys that are on here out of the prime of their careers, but there's going to be a considerable list. And again, some of these guys could still opt out and they have options going for. Just kind of perusing the list, there are going to be plenty of options for the Rockies to do. And I know we as fans, even myself, I mean, I'm more reserved when it comes to this kind of situation because I've been through this before with the White Sox rebuild a couple years ago. as much as you want them to just go for it, it's not the time to, because and we're in a kind of a sticky situation because the White Sox, they're one of the they're arguably the worst division in baseball. The Rockies are one of the best divisions in baseball,
Mm,
and the quote unquote king of the division just signed arguably two of the top free agent and another one of the top five free agents of this offseason. So we're
mhm.
kind of stuck. I mean, like I said, we lost Juan Soto, but we gained Shohei Otani and Yamamoto. So,
Yeah.
again, I know you and I have said this one word kind of before many times on the podcast. And I'm sure people get tired who listen to our voices, and thank you for that. Get tired of hearing this. The one word is actually, I'll add two: patience and relax.
Yep.
It's a challenge, but again, if I think we should all, the one thing I learned from watching the White Sox rebuild from 2017 to 2019, it was fun to watch those young top ranked prospects developed into quality major leaguers and they become a contending team. So I think we should enjoy for now, just enjoy the experience of watching young guys like Tovar, Jones, Doyle, McMahon just play the game to play the game. And then when the expectations come, if they do for next year, when we decide to round out and create the next Rockies contending team, then we'll enjoy the what hopes to be good years, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can dethrone the Dodgers as the division kings.
Hmm. And let's head into our last segment of the podcast, and that's for our 2024 Rockies New Year's resolutions. And like I have a couple of them, and really it just like kind of what we were talking about is kind of looking at the young players, like Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar. And right before we start we were talking about like the defense of some of these players. And and like I think Tom pointed out that the Rockies were number one, was it in like defensive, like what's that, was it was something.
In terms of defense, you're talking?
Yeah.
Well, I'll ramble off real quick. In defensive runs saved, they were ranked 14th in Major League Baseball in just 2023, according to Fangraphs.
Hmm.
And let me just make sure I get this one stats appropriation name right. Okay, wait, this is an arm stat. Outfield arms runs above average. That is, of course, ranking outfield arms in terms of defensive pedigree. They were ranked first by a landslide in that category, and that is
Hmm.
due to, of course, as we've talked about, two guys who just are really just had outstanding defensive years in Bretton Doyle and Nolan Jones.
Yeah. And then, again, right before we started, I was kind of talking about Tovar too. Tovar had a, underrated year,
Mhm.
even defensively as well. I mean, he was a Gold Glove finalist at shortstop in the National League. I expect him to win some Gold Gloves. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just, that's going to be one of the big things. And I guess for my number one resolution for next year, just keep playing defense. I mean, the Rockies, they need defense. The Rockies over the past number of years, going back to 2017, 2018, even before that, when Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story were here, the Rockies had one of the best defensive teams, especially on the left side of the infield. You couldn't really beat that. I mean, it was kind of like a vacuum over there. And the Rockies, they needed the same thing in 2024 with Doyle and Jones and with his arm and Tovar and even McMahon too. And McMahon, I feel like sometimes doesn't get the love. And we're still waiting for Ryan McMahon to get his Gold Glove at third base. And so yeah, like really is the defense to be there. And then the offense got to improve going to next year. And one of the things I know, like you were pointing out before we started, is
Mhm.
the hard hit rate for the Rockies.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
hard hit percentage. The Rockies did pretty well this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with the new hitting coach Hensley Mullins, who came over from the Yankees last offseason. And I wasn't a big fan of Dave Magadan, who was the previous hitting coach, because if you look at some of the numbers from 2000, even when he came to the Rockies in 2019, 2020, you look at the offense and the ground ball rate, it was way high. It was one of the worst in baseball. And I think heading into this year, one of the big things was like, hey, can the Rockies please just not ground out or get into the double plays? Because the Rockies
Mhm.
got into a lot of double plays a couple years ago. Even 2022, they got into a lot of double plays. They were, I think, one of the leading teams in baseball in terms of grounding out into a double play. Where in 2023, this past year, the Rockies, they were able to avoid that quite a bit. And with the hard hit rate and that percentage that they had, was much improved, which was great to see. However, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing for the Rockies offense moving forward, is got to be the power. More
Mhm,
home runs. And Nolan Jones, he had a 2020 season, with 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. But no, and here's the thing too. Nolan Jones didn't even play the full season. He only played just a little over 100 games this year,
mhm,
and it's just crazy how he was able to do that. And I think Nolan Jones going into next year, again, knock on wood, and we're hoping that he can stay healthy and we see a lot from him next year, and I expect we will. I think you're looking at a ceiling, of 30 plus home runs for Nolan Jones, in my mind, easily, because Nolan Jones can get on a hot tear anytime, and I think he's definitely a 30 plus home run guy. Ryan McMahon, we're still like we keep saying this, but we still keep looking for that 30 plus home run, 35 plus home run season for Ryan McMahon. And I think it's in there. It's just we're waiting to see it come out. Even Tovar has some power. I mean, Tovar had a few bops this past year. Um, Charlie Blackmon, he still has his power, but I'm not expecting much. Usually you can get like, maybe 10 home runs max from Charlie nowadays. Maybe even 15 if he's really hot. Um, you know, so yeah, I like to see the power improve. So really it's the defense returning to form, the power coming back. Because the Rockies, they've been one of the worst teams in baseball over the last number of years in terms of power. That's got to come back if they want to start winning more games. And then just, I guess the final thing for me, going into next year for my resolutions, is the pitching staff the health of the pitching staff. If the Rockies want to win more games than they did, and they don't want to really kind of do all over again of what happened this past year of losing 103 games, I personally I don't want to see that again. But the Rockies, they gotta stay healthy. And with the new pitching rules that are going into next year, I'm not too excited about that. I'm kind of concerned. I'm kind of worried about how that's going to affect some of the pitchers, not only for the Rockies, but within baseball as a whole. Um, Kind of concerned about that, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. But yeah, like the rotation's got to stay healthy, because really, if one guy goes down, the Rockies might be in big trouble, because that's why the Rockies got to build some of the pitching depth, and that's why the Rockies are drafting heavily. Over the past 3 years, drafting a lot of pitchers, especially over the last 2 years. But yeah, like those are my three big things for the Rockies going into next year, because I'm not really looking at making a wild card spot. It's really about just seeing what the young players have. Just do what you did last year, but make it a little bit of a better year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Doyle wins another. I mean, I think Doyle could win it easily another Gold Glove like next year. We'll just have to
mhm.
wait and see, because there might be another team out there or another player out there that just shocks everybody and does well in center field. But I guess those are my three things going into next year for 2024.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to a team that's trying to I always say I'm gonna be a firm proponent, regardless of sport, defense does win championships. I will believe that statement as a sports fan until the day I die. Um, and like you said, yeah, defensive runs saved, they ranked 14th in Major League Baseball, so they were in the top half. And they had four gold. Wait, yeah, one, two. Was it? It was three, not four. It was three Gold Glove nominees, not four, right? It
Yeah,
was.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Doyle, McMahon, and Tovar. So, and Joe, and you could add a fourth one. Jones is a possibility.
Jones almost
There,
made it, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I would think he's definitely a possibility. I mean, like I said, that arm outs above average stat, which measures your outfielder's arm's defensive pedigree. That was largely due. I mean, Jones and Doyle had some amazing throws. One of my favorites was Jones throwing out Acuna at home at Coors Field. That was an
Hmm.
awesome. That was pretty much on the money, and it was not a bounce throw either. So again, remember, to all the players who hear my voice, please don't run on Nolan or Nolan or Brenton. Um, so yeah, that's going to be key, especially when you have, like, how do I say this? When you have, obviously, the hard hit rate of Coors Field is very, very high. So if you can have a solid defense, particularly your outfield defense, that is going to be a key. I mean, remember the last Rockies contender? You had Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Gold Glove winner, and a Gold Glove caliber shortstop, with DJ, Gold Glove winner, and other, and of course, like Charlie, not a Gold Glover, but again, Carlos Gonzalez, didn't he win a Gold Glove in his career? I think he
Yeah,
did.
he did. Yep.
But either way, you had a great defense in that 17, 18, 19 contention window per se. So that's going to be critical. I do agree with you on that one. Specifically when it comes to someone want to bring up about pitching, obviously this shouldn't surprise a lot of people. When in 2023, the Rockies pitching staff this is Rockies pitching overall ERA, they were ranked 30th. Fielding independent pitching, they were ranked 30th as well. Two statistics that really kind of obviously don't, how do I say this? Don't really too much. Their ground ball rate at 41.4%, they were ranked 23rd. These numbers are according to Fangraphs, by the way. And their home runs per fly ball percentage was 14%, which ranks them 29th in Major League Baseball. That again, that's got to change. They've got to work on keeping the ball on the ground because remember, in Coors Field, ball in the air, it's more likely to go. It'll fly further than any other ballpark in baseball. So, one thing I would say specifically to the pitchers, work on keeping the ball on. Again, I'm going to quote Lou, the manager in Major League here: "Keep the ball on the ground." So
Love
that's
that scene.
a,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So yeah, I can go on about how that is one of my favorite baseball movies of all times. It
Yeah.
might actually be number one. I have to look back at all of them and rank them.
Yeah, we're gonna have
But
to
again,
like one of these days. We're gonna have to like we probably will eventually, but we're gonna have to do like a little segment of like just our favorite baseball movies and just like kind
sure,
of talk about that. So
yeah,
we
but
keep
yeah,
yeah
but yeah, we could do it for sure. And then, yeah,
yeah
so when it comes to pitching, keep the ball in the ground. And for hitters, as you pointed out, we talked about earlier, they were ranked in hard hit percentage. They were ranked third in Major League Baseball, which is great
hmm
to see.
yeah
However, this is one thing: their ground ball rate, they ranked 18th in baseball, and their fly ball rate was 24th. And of course, home run per fly ball, they were 24th in baseball. The ground ball rate, I would sit at 42.3%, ranked 18th. I would like to see that number get below 40%.
yeah
And the fly ball rate at 36.3, ranked 24th. I'd like to see that get over 40 because one thing you can say when it comes to, I'll quote former White Sox general manager Rick Hahn: ball go far, team go far. So again, with a hard hit rate that we have ranked third in baseball, we should definitely try to keep hitting the ball in the air. One thing that's crazy for anybody who's a statistic kind of a numbers guy like I am, the Rockies were first in line drive rate in 2023, which is good. You want to hard hit ball line drives through the infield are always great base hits in my opinion. So
hmm
that's the thing. Get keep the ball off in terms of pitching, keep the ball on the ground, but verse opposite for inning for hitters, get the ball in the air and try and drive it either out of the park or hard and out of the infield and through a gap. So that's my big thing. Resolutions on all the sides of uh fundamentals here for the things. And of course, focus on the fundamentals, do the little things right.
hmm
Don't discredit any of those. But yeah, baseball movies, that's definitely for our listeners and followers. I think that's definitely something we will be doing. I think we will be doing in the future.
yeah. Keep your eyes out on that. I want to read some of the comments that we have here on Instagram. So we have one from I probably will get the name wrong, but anyway, I'll just read the comment. Starting lineup, opening day predictions. Good question.
Hmm.
I guess we'll go kind of quickly. I guess for me, starting catcher will be Diaz. First base would be Bryant. Second base, Rogers. Shortstop, Tovar. Third base, McMahon. Left field, Jones. Doyle, center, and right field. You could
That's the trick.
there's
Yeah.
some option. I'm gonna go Hunter Goodman in right field, and Charlie Blackman is the DH,
Mhm.
and
I'm
then
gonna
starting
agree with
catcher
it.
would be probably Kyle Freeland, probably.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
Are you good?
Yeah, yeah, I thought someone was calling me. No, I agree that I would go with this. Logically, that's the same. I mean, right field, I think is the one that could change, but logically,
Mhm.
yeah, the rest, I agree with you 100%. Same thing.
Yeah, I don't expect Toglia to be on the opening day roster. I like, I'm
Mm-mm,
kind of in
no.
some ways we've been kind of waiting to see if he gets traded, but I think he'll probably start the year in AAA. But we could see a Toglia in starting right field. We'll have to wait. I mean, it really depends on if he has a good spring or not. But really, I'm expecting Hunter Goodman or Blackman to start in right field. So good question there. With MLB expansion, maybe we can move out of the NL West and move to the AL Central. That is actually maybe not a bad idea. But there's also rumors like I mean, I think well, it's gonna happen. I mean, expansion is gonna happen. I mean, the
Yeah.
Rockies, I think they're gonna be the team that's gonna be heading out. However, I want to say I saw somewhere that basically it had to deal with like who was the more I forget what it was, but it's basically said that in some ways the Rockies would be the team that's staying in, the D-backs would be moving. I forget what it was, but
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, the logical thing is the Rockies would be the team moving out, and I think it would be AL West or NL Central. Like AL Central would be nice because you have like some easier teams to beat up upon, but I really don't want to be in the same one as the Cubs and the Cardinals. Those are some big teams as well, but that could be a realistic possibility. I don't know, Tom. What do you think? AL Central or NL Central? AL West?
Well, I would love to go to the AL Central or either one because, well, the NL Central is a little more a little more competitive when it comes to that, but or I
Yeah.
should say more in terms of teams rankings, they're better. But yeah, I would love to move to the AL Central because obviously it'd be a little easier to in terms of winning the division.
Mm,
But I know you're right. There's going to be expansion. Nashville is the number one expansion city that right now. I mean, there's a committee to try and get an expansion franchise to Nashville right now, headed by former Oakland A's player Dave Stewart and former Oakland longtime manager Tony La Russa. They're trying to get that off the ground. So that's an expansion. But with expansion, I think there's not going to be, how do I say this? There's going to be, I think, a reshuffling of teams. And I could see the White Sox, given the geographic location, I could see the White Sox, the Royals, I'm sorry, the Rockies and the why I say White Sox, right? The Rockies and the Royals being possibly in the same division, quote
hmm
unquote,
Yeah.
because it's kind of the I was Kansas
Same
City's not a
area.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct, same area, you're right. But yeah,
Mm.
there's probably going to be expansion is inevitable, and then there's going to be, I think, a reshuffling of the divisions.
Yeah, and then not to mention you might even add a division like because
Sure.
if you look at the NFL, kind of the same thing. They have four divisions per league, and so I think that's the way it would probably go. Because if you just add two teams, you're basically going to add one division in each league will have an extra team. But I think instead they're just going to do four teams per division, or yeah, something like that. Um, so yeah, it would probably be like or they could do something. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because again, there's like I think it's probably going to be like two more teams.
Mhm.
Nashville, I think, is definitely one of them. I think they're probably going to get a team. There's even rumors about Salt Lake City wanting to get a team. And actually,
Yeah.
fun fact, Dick Monfort's brother, Charlie Monfort, I think he's one of the guys that's trying to put a team in Salt Lake City. And I
Mm.
think it would be kind of cool because the Rockies would kind of have a Rocky Mountain rival. And so, it would be kind of, I would actually kind of like that,
Yeah,
but I just don't think it would happen. I feel like it probably, I don't know. I would like to see Montreal get their team back. It would
I
be
agree.
really awesome because I don't know, something about the jersey scheme and just like the colors and the city. I understand that, it was the stadium. A lot of it was because if you look at the stadium now, it's just like not good. Like,
Yeah.
just build a stadium, like, kinda like in another baseball movie. If you build it, they will come. If you build a new stadium, they'll come. And Montreal has some, great fans. And yeah, like, you might not get a whole lot of fans, but just build a stadium that, you might be able to hold 20, 30,000 people. And yeah, you could have a team there. And I think I'd like to see Montreal get a baseball team back. So, Nashville, Montreal would be my picks for expansion. But if
I
not
agree.
Montreal, I would look at I don't think Portland would get one because they just,
Mm-mm.
I just with what's going on over there and just I don't know. And plus, it's kind of close to Seattle. I know that there would be some people. Well, they kind of have a rival there, but I just don't see it. It just I really don't. I mean, Orlando, no, because I mean
No.
Florida's not a big baseball, and plus they already have two teams in Florida that don't do well in terms of attendance. The payroll is not very good in both teams. Um, so yeah, it's curious. I mean, Montreal, I love Montreal. So I guess those are my
Agreed.
two picks. Montreal, bring back the Expos. If not the Expos, just put a team back in Montreal.
I agree. Montreal and Nashville would be if you're gonna add 2, which I think is the plan, I would go with those 2 cities. Portland, I don't see as a baseball city,
No.
and a 3rd team in Florida, a big NO for me.
Yeah.
No.
The only reason that there would be a possibility would be, of course, Disney. You have a lot of parks in that area, but it's,
Mhm.
people would be like, like the problem with that is just like, oh, let's go to a baseball game. But yeah, they're just not fans of the team. Yeah, you might get some fans, but like with the history with the Marlins and the Rays and with their attendance, I mean, look at what happened with the Rays during the postseason. Like, it looked like less than it was so bad. The attendance, if you were
Mhm.
watching the AL wild card series against the Rangers, terrible. Like it was just like I want to say it was like the average attendance was just around 20,000 fans, and it might be even lower than that. And it was so bad. And so yeah, I agree. Orlando, they don't need one, but yeah, Montreal for me. There was another city like baseball has been talking about, international, like people, I think Mexico City or something like that.
It would,
Um,
yeah.
but however, I do think that just like in the NBA and even in the NHL, I know there's more than two teams in the NHL and the Canada, but I'd like to see two teams in Canada. It would be just Montreal. And if MLB wants to expand more in the future, they could go to Mexico. But for me, it's got to be Montreal and Nashville. I
I
think
agree.
Nashville, they already have a triple A team there with the Sounds. Fun fact: my brother went to a Nashville Sounds game years ago, but great stadium. I've heard great environment. But yeah, like Nashville, Montreal, those are my. I think they definitely deserve a Major League Baseball team.
I agree, and plus you got the international series going. You were in Mexico City this year, you're going to Korea, they're going to Korea this season. So,
Hmm.
they're trying to gain the international presence, but I agree, Nashville and Montreal would be my 2, expansion cities, excuse me.
Hmm. One more question here from Instagram: is Montero in the starting lineup opening day? Um, Well, 100%. If the Rockies don't trade him, he'll definitely be on the bench. I mean, with the way he performed at the end of the 2023 season, I think he's gonna be on the roster. He just won't be on opening day lineup. Just like, however, if so, hopefully, nobody gets injured. If Montero or somebody else gets injured, Montero, he could start, but I think he's going to be on the bench. Most likely, and we're going to probably see him next year kind of do what he did this year, play first base, DH. I think his days playing at third base are over. Just seeing what Bud's reaction was last year, especially early in the season, made some bobbles, some errors that were somewhat easier plays. But good question. But yeah, like, I think he'll definitely be on the roster, but he won't be on the lineup on opening day, in my opinion.
Roster, yes, he'll be on the bench, but in starting lineup, no.
Mhm.
The only way he would is if Chris Bryant could still play regularly in the outfield. Yes, he would be at first base, I think. But with Bryant becoming the permanent everyday first baseman, the answer is no because he can't play the outfield.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I guess because Montero was like I remember was in month of September when the
Mhm,
Rockies were at Coors Field playing against the Giants and the Cubs. He was on fire. I mean, every single
mhm,
day he was getting like 2, 3 knocks. And when I went there, when I went to Coors Field in August when they were playing against your White Sox, Montero, I mean, he was hitting the ball well that night. I think he had 3 or 4 hits that night, and he looks. I mean, I just for me personally, I feel like he maybe could lose a little bit of weight.
mhm,
And maybe that's just me, but Montero, I mean, the guy has a ton. I mean, in AAA last year, and even year before that, when he was in AAA, kind of waiting for a spot to open on the roster, he was tearing it up in AAA. And I know some of our listeners might be, somewhat, Isotope fans, or they might listen in to Isotope games or kind of like look at the games occasionally. But Montero, man, he was looking really good in AAA, and I think he definitely deserves to be on an MLB roster. It's just that with the Rockies the way they are right now, they're kind of like, they don't have really a lot of positions available for him. But definitely, I mean, he's a great bench guy, and I think you can't have him on your roster. I mean, you have to have him. Um, what I meant was you have to have him on your right. You cannot have him not on your roster. That's what I meant. But yeah, it just with the power that he has, he can definitely hit 20 plus a year when he's like doing well and not kind of struggling like the way he was. Montero's still going to struggle. I mean, I think he's playing winter ball right now, and
mhm.
I saw his stats the other day. They didn't look particularly pretty, but I mean, like it's winter ball. I mean, I think he's trying to. I mean, some players might not do well, but they're working on their swing or just their bat path, whatever. But anyways, it's just like I'm excited for Montero because there's a potential that he could be a huge player for the Rockies. That's if the Rockies do not trade him, but. With the Rockies looking for some bench help or some more pitching help, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies move him or Toglia or both of them.
Mhm.
And I think those are definitely the two interesting guys that could get traded if the Rockies don't trade Rogers. or McMahon or some of those guys on the roster. So I don't know. Good question. We'll have to wait and see. But no, I don't see him in the lineup. But he'll 100% be on the roster for opening day next year.
Mhm.
I think we're
Agreed.
playing Arizona on opening day. I think,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So should be interesting. Should be fun. Um, and I think overall, I think that's it. I mean, other than that, I think I want to say, well, there's some breaking news, I guess. Zach Plesac is nearing a deal with the Angels per reports.
Ooh,
So
interesting. That's
yeah, I mean the Angels they're kind of looking for pitching, and I mean they were kind of interested in Blake Snell, but I don't think he's going to the Angels. In my opinion, I mean I'm happy
no.
that the Angels are trying, but with the ownership and the way that organization is going right now, it's just I mean I like them trying to be competitive, but with with them not doing whatever to a Shohei Otani, not giving him I feel like the respects that he deserves. It's just like I don't think they're gonna be getting Snell anytime soon.
Yeah, for having watched Plesac with the Cleveland Guardians again play against the White Sox, he had some good years. It was a promising start in 2019 and 2020, but over the last several years, he's kind of fallen off. There was a bit of a bad behavior controversy during the COVID shutdown. The Guardians had to discipline him for that.
Mm,
But yeah, he has struggled a bit with some here and there injuries, nothing too serious. Last year he was injured pretty much the whole season, so he's going to a team to try and rebuild his career. I know his uncle is going to be supporting it. His uncle Dan Plesac, longtime major league pitcher, is an MLB Network analyst, one of my favorites, by the way. I love listening to his
mhm,
opinion. I love
yeah.
listening to his opinions. Yeah, Plesac is just going to be trying to rebuild his career and reestablish his value. So hopefully he can then of course sign a good contract for to with hopefully for his career's sake a contender.
Mhm. As we finish tonight's podcast, we just want to Tom and I would like to thank you for listening to our podcast this year. This is our last podcast of 2023. We'll see you all next year. It's been a great year. We posted this on our Twitter or X page a few weeks ago of the numbers of listeners, followers, that sort of stuff, and even like countries where people have been listening in. And we just want to say a big, big thank you to everyone that has been able to listen, click in, and just say hi or just comment. We just want to thank you so much for doing that. It really helps us out. We really couldn't have done it without you. This is just the beginning. We're going to be moving forward. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up in 2024. We're going to be growing a lot bigger. So this is definitely not the end. So we just want to say a personal thank you for listening. And it's been a fun year, but 2024 is going to be fun. On the podcast, we have some special guests. We're not going to spoil who they are, but we have some special guests that are going to be coming up soon. So keep your eyes out open for that. And yeah, again, it's just wow. I mean, I posted this a couple weeks ago too. Like a year ago, I didn't even imagine this would happen. I was just doing these on my own. I was just basically talking on my phone and just kind of sharing my thoughts. And here we are. But it's been an awesome ride so far, and I can't wait to move forward into the new year. And I'm ready for some Rockies baseball and just sharing, the love of baseball fun with all of our listeners and our followers. So, to all of our listeners, thank you so much. It's been a great year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next year. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, I think that will conclude this episode of the Rockies Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, and review all of our social media pages. We love hearing from all of our wonderful listeners. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Happy New Year's. And as always, go Rockies.